Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel with myself, Isabella. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you're new here, click that subscribe button so you never miss another video. My name's Isabella and I'm a graduate of the Vaganova Ballet Academy. I then went on to dance with the Mikhailovsky Ballet and Eifman Ballet before I returned to London and founded BWI. BWI, balletwithisabella.com, is an online platform where we have classes and courses, plans, bespoke plans, as well as live weekly classes. So I teach online amongst many other teachers, online, live on Zoom for my members. And then along with that, we have the pre-recorded classes and courses for you to do in your spare time. I also host intensives worldwide for adults and soon vocational students and more. More coming. I'm so excited to share more. So today is going to be an Instagram Q&A. You asked me a lot of questions, which I really appreciate. And we've got quite a few questions here. And so I'm going to round up some questions. I'm going to pick them kind of at random. And I'm just going to see exactly what people would like me to answer. Okay, here we go. How many classes per week is optimal for seeing obvious improvement? Well, if you're talking ballet, then every day. If you're talking exercises, then again, I would say every day. I would say try to do your exercises every day, even if it means you're only doing it maybe 15 minutes a day. I would say it's more about quality over quantity. For example, in terms of quantity per day, you don't necessarily have to do 4 hours to see progress. Even 15 minutes a day to half an hour, but consistently every day will really see progress. And with ballet, we want to do it as often as possible. If you're more a recreational student, I would say 3 times a week. 2 to 3 times a week. I wouldn't go any less than 3 times. Otherwise, yes, you will progress, but it's going to be really slow. And even if you mentally understand, the body needs regularity. And so even if you did ballet class once a week and you feel like you learned a lot, mentally, your body will soon forget what it's learned really quick. That's why we have to do ballet like every day. But ballet 3 times a week is good because then you sort of get a day, a rest, another day, a rest, another day, and you'll really see progress that way. Any tips to help get more flexible in splits and feet? Splits, I'm actually working on a program for you all very soon. But with the splits, you need to be really intelligent and think about all the areas that having a good split requires. And in this case, I'm going to be talking about literally just a flat split as opposed to over split, because that's also something else altogether. But generally the areas we are stretching is the same. So think intelligently and know your body well enough to understand where it is you're tight. Is it everywhere? Is it just your hamstrings? Is it your hamstrings? Is it your glutes? Is it your back even stopping you from getting into this split? Is it your hip flexors and the front of your hips? So even though your hamstrings are tight, it might be that your hip flexors are constricted or your glutes are constricted, even though you're actually pretty loose in the hamstrings. So often there's an issue or issues which would stop you getting deeper into the stretch. Once we've established that, it's all about consistency again and slowly building up. It's no good kind of just trying to whack out the splits. You will definitely injure yourself. You need to take it nice and slow so that you get there progressively. But in order to get there progressively, we need to be very consistent and do the things we need to daily in order to get there. And so with front splits, when for example, you're simulating a grand pas de chat or a grand jeté, you've got to stretch all the areas required for that slowly. Hamstrings, hips, glutes, and only after all of that should you attempt the actual split. For box splits, yes, you want to open your legs up, quite wide as you can. And slowly kind of fold your body forwards, try to get to the floor, try to get a little bit more open each time, then start to add yoga blocks when you get more flexible. I prefer, for example, that approach when we're trying to open up this way, as opposed to a lot of people try to slide down, so they're kind of in the splits in second and they try to slide down. Number one, obviously we're turning in when we do that most of the time. And so it's not an accurate representation of our actual second flexibility, because when you stand up to do développé side, grand pas one side, or just have openness of hip, you only have openness when you're parallel. which is kind of not so useful for ballet. So I prefer how I've done it. I've never done the slide down approach ever. I've always just opened out this way. Because that's what I want to do, open up. So I really recommend getting a strong stretch band, like again, or Minden band, or you can also get them quite cheaply from non-ballet branded places like the gym brands from Amazon, even just thick stretch bands, and tie them around your feet. I do have a class on my platform called Get Your Splits, as well as any end also improve your stretches for side développé. In general, my stretch classes will cover all these areas to help you open up your hips eventually. So definitely check those out in the link below, balletwithisabella.com. What do you recommend to stretch the knees more? Yeah, so often some of us are born with, knees that are slightly more bent than others, and my legs were actually not super sway back. The thing that made me look like I had more than I had was my my feet, because my feet are archy. But my sway back increased when I started to stretch my hamstrings more and also strengthen my legs more. So I think a combination of stretching your hamstrings, on a yoga block and leaning over, so you're stretching the hamstring into the back of the knee, as well as really do lots of exercises where you're really strengthening the knee in the first place. So you can put your knee over a foam roller, and you can put a weight on your ankles, like an ankle weight, and just kind of, if the foam roller's there, you just stretch and bend and stretch and bend, and sort of really hold the extension for a few seconds. So you're really feeling the pulled up leg, and also you're really concentrating on where you're pulling up from. So don't even think about the huge muscle of the quad. Think about the VMO and the muscle literally above the knee, right where the knee is. You want to think about squeezing that, especially on the inside. So that's where we need to concentrate on, pulling up the knee, as well as the stretching the backs of the legs and holding it for a good while until you feel this nice sort of almost like a real lengthening and a real pull to your legs, like they're really kind of sinking down, like you've really allowed the leg to lengthen. Sort of jumping in for 30 seconds won't necessarily do it so much. So just kind of wait there until the stretch dissipates, so that you've actually given it the time it needs to lengthen out, and then strengthening the front of the leg, and you'll definitely be fine, as well as the inner thighs, working on that. So when you stretch your legs, you really feel the draw of the inner thighs. Again, we have lots of classes. I recommend strength for knees and thighs on my website, as well as turnout and beats conditioning, it's called, and any of the stretch classes. So one of my good adult friends has asked, what's the logic of the 4 arabesques in the Vaganova system? I'm putting together a new course, which includes the arabesques. You start learning the arabesques, and you kind of, they're the arabesques which are in most arabesque movements. There's one of them or the other, and the way you start is without lifting the leg at all, just feeling the position and understanding the alignment of the position, and then slowly you progress and lift the leg higher. But we'll be learning those very, very soon. Do you think it's worth it and possible to start ballet at 15? I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, why not? Definitely. Like, there's been some great dancers like Misty Copeland, and who else? I think Victor Cachata from Dutch Nationals started pretty late. I've interviewed both of them, so definitely check out the interviews on my podcast, Dancer's Mindset, because that will reassure you, I think. As well as, I've even had someone called Hannah Martin, who's at Birmingham Royal Ballet. She was a gymnast up until she was like 14 or something. I don't quite remember exactly the age, but she started ballet itself like quite late and wanted to be pro late. So she really transformed herself in a short space of time. But obviously she had the facility there, The only thing is, because you have less time, you need to have real gifts. So you need to understand, okay, how do I stretch? How do I really maximize my ability? How do I make sure I'm flexible enough, turned out enough, and really be sort of use to your advantage, your mature brain, listen to your teacher, apply your corrections, and utilize your time super well so that you don't waste any time. Make sure you have a good coach. You've got no time to waste with teachers who are kind of, not going to serve you and not help you as much as you need. That's really key. But it's totally possible. We just need to make sure you are taking the right approach. Are there any aspects of the Royal Ballet School that you actually preferred over Vaganova? That is a really interesting question, my goodness. Got to think about this one. I would say, this is a really good question. What did I prefer? Some people think I really hate the Royal Ballet School, which I don't at all. I just love the Vaganova and I'm passionate about it. And it really suited me. I still am in touch with a lot of my friends from the Royal Ballet School. It has some really great things about it. And I think the only thing that they've suffered from, the school itself, is just kind of they've been messing around with their system a lot. So it's kind of, it becomes not clear what they're doing. And then subsequently the results have been a bit haphazard. But I mean, you can kind of see similar things happening at the Vaganova now, even is changing a lot, and it's kind of, they're looking different. It's kind of strange. What I was going to say, I think what I really appreciated when I first went to Vaganova, obviously I had so much to work on, in terms of flexibility, turnout, just style, it was just completely different. But what I noticed that was really drilled into me, and what I noticed that I had quite good from the Royal Ballet School was I was very clean, even though I was tall. Like I made sure I noticed a lot how, like in Assemblée, for example, in the Cicchetti method, it's very drilled into you to really use the floor and kind of, obviously probably as well from a young age at Vaganova they would, but what I took away from the Royal Ballet School is really like, because everything's in the Cicchetti method, and at the Royal Ballet School at the time everything was focused on like very down, so lots of use of plie, like really into the floor, which was hard for me anyway because I'm such a tall person, and feeling like I'm just very low and down was kind of, I felt like I must have looked a little silly. Like that sort of technique really suits a smaller dancer, which is ultimately what most of the Royal Ballet is smaller, than Mariinsky, for example. But I really appreciated the use of the floor, and I look back at old exams, and even though I'm a little bit untidy in other areas, I'm clean, so I really value like closing in a nice tight fifth position, how I'm using my floor. And I was a little bit better at controlled pirouettes, so my pirouettes and my framing of everything. So obviously I had so much to work on, but I valued very much like alignment, squareness, and valuing the clarity of my positions. Obviously the Vaganova taught me how to really like give more and express and not be stiff, because I was criticized for being stiff, but I understood that it was very important to be clear and clean in your positions. So I never related to when I would see, especially at Bolshoi, like some Russian dancers who would be like a little bit messy in their arms, and they would be like droopy elbows, whereas the Royal Ballet School, everything had to be very nice and perfectly shaped and all these things. So I would say also my turns, like I said, were a little bit cleaner. When, for example, there was one day in particular I'll never forget, and I think because I was then stronger from the Vaganova technique, I could almost draw upon more of what the Royal Ballet School had given me. So when we were doing like single turn from fifth and double, and single and double and single, and I just had a real good sense of sharp positions, because this was again something drilled, sharp to the retire, sharp positions, use of floor, clear positions. And so I was doing single and double clean, whereas the other girls were a little bit throwing themselves a little bit all over the place and not really feeling like their core so well, because obviously core stability and having this compact core was something that was focused on too. So yeah, I did take a fair amount away. I was a clean dancer, but I was a little bit stiff, and I lacked turnout and I lacked flexibility. That was brought out of me later, and then collectively I had this nice result, So as much as I talk about the Vaganova, I do value and appreciate the time I had at the Royal Ballet School, of course. Will you do an intensive in the UK for teenage students? Yeah, totally. We will. I'm not going to say when just yet. Spoiler alert. But definitely, 100%. It's definitely leaning that way, and we've had requests. So 100%. I love vocational students. I tend to teach vocational students so much when I'm abroad, because obviously I visit these places and I teach loads of vocational students, and it's so fun. So yeah, definitely. Stay tuned. Quick warm-up routine. So I have a warm-up routine on my platform, which is kind of everything that I'm going to say now. But basically, a quick warm-up routine, let's say, 15 minutes? Maybe 20. Are we including stretching? Let's include stretching too. So I would say you need to do 10 to 12 minutes of actual exercises, and then some stretching. I would always include exercises that would warm up every single area. I love floor bar, for example. I would always implement floor bar exercises because it would allow me to then stand up and literally be ready and be fully connected to my body. What floor bar doesn't quite do for me is warm up the core, like loads, because I want to, if I'm talking like floor bar, as most of you may know, obviously it can get complicated and we do lots of lifts and pikes, but if we're just talking about the legs, I would implement movements that would really warm up my abdominals, such as the pike, such as some high planks, such as some mountain climbers, some abdominal work, some push-ups. I would always warm up my upper body and my arms too, so that my back was warm. I would just basically make sure I was warming up all areas, back, abs, hamstrings and backs of legs, glutes, feet, calves. And I would kind of start on the floor, start with some exercises. I would always foam roll before as well. So let's pretend that we did that before this quick routine. Let's say we did that in the morning. So I would foam roll. Then I would do exercises to warm up every area, more like Pilates type exercises. And just a few reps, it sounds like, if we've only got 20 minutes. Then I would do a couple of floor bar exercises, so I knew my turnout was really connected. And then I would stretch. Then I would stand up, and if I only had 20 minutes, then whilst in the class, assuming it's not a school environment, but it was open class or something, and I was allowed to do stuff while the exercise was happening, I would then probably do some calf rises while I'm waiting. Between combinations, I would always stretch. I would actually still do that at school. When she was demonstrating, I would always stretch. It was usually before Rondesham, because at the Vaganova, the legs go up quick. So I would always stretch before Rondesham so that I knew that I was ready to lift my legs. And so do the main things. You always want to be a little bit sweaty before you start, so you're really toasty, and you're really warm. All right, guys, here we go. How to deal with burnout. Yeah, burnout's real. And if you are anything like me and you work yourself to death, like today, whilst I'm filming this today, I'm actually pretty tired. I had a bit of a rough start to the day. Woke up feeling pretty exhausted today. I haven't really slept well last night or the night before. So for me, sleep's super important. So if I don't sleep that well, even just for one night, I feel kind of a little bit cray-cray the next day and just suffering. And so today I'm actually pretty tired, but talking to you has revved me up, but also hence the coffee. But burnout is really real and really serious, all jokes aside. And you need to really pay attention to the signs of burnout. For me, the obvious signs are obviously tiredness. Obviously, that's a pretty obvious one. Tiredness, feeling depressed, not enjoying what you're doing, not enjoying and kind of dreading doing anything to do with it when you once loved it. Those are signs that you're burnt out, and you can kind of mistake those signs for, I just don't like this anymore. What if I'm not passionate about this anymore? What if I don't want to do this anymore? When actually you may just be friggin' tired. You may just want to have a little break. You may just need a little bit of a vacation. As a student, because I know a lot of students listen to this, and as a student we don't have the luxury of choosing when our vacation is, but you may be working yourself into the ground too hard. Are you taking on too many extracurricular activities? Are you taking on things which are kind of what you think you should be doing but are not serving you? Have you booked yourself in for too many competitions this year? You know, are you prepping for competitions like a crazy lady and kind of losing the reasons why you're doing it and losing that desire to dance in the first place? These are all things to think about and factor in. When ultimately, if you're doing like 4 competitions a year and not enjoying them and burning out, would it be more beneficial to do 2 competitions really well and kind of have a little bit of breathing space in between to allow yourself to recover and focus on other things? When you have signs of burnout, number 1 is, okay, look at your schedule. When can I take a rest most immediately? Because you probably need to recharge and recalibrate. Then look at your year and be like, okay, what's not working for me? What keeps making me burn out? What keeps kind of making me have to stop and give in to these feelings of exhaustion only to restart again? Because sometimes your body forces you to stop, right? And then you stop, and then you go back and you feel a little bit better and you go, but you're not really paying attention to what it is in the first place that's causing that burnout, and then it happens again. So really focus on and look at your schedule and your routine and notice what are the patterns of when this is happening, so we can avoid it and so that you can have a more sustainable routine. That's really important. And I don't want you to worry about, but I need to do all these exercises, and if I cut back, I'm not going to improve. And it's like, no, you can, but let's recalibrate it. Instead of trying to do an hour a day of everything, maybe let's do 15 minutes of our first priority, day 1, 15 minutes of our second priority, day 2, and then day 3, we do a combination of the 2. So it's not everything every day, so we burn out. And that's similar. This is similar to what I do for my principal plans, making it sustainable. And so I want you to really look at that, okay? Because we want you to have a long-lasting career and get good sleep. You know, I actually use this thing called a Whoop now. I'm not sponsored, I'm not anything. I just love it. And it's just a strap, but it helps me stay on track. So, you know, when I have a really long teaching day, those exhaust me, they really do. And I need so much sleep. And so it tells me like, oh, you need this amount of sleep. And it often tells me the next day, you need to go to sleep earlier tonight so you can recover from the previous day. It's really great, and it really knows me, because if I don't get enough sleep, it tells me, and then it's like, no, and it really tracks everything, like how deep your sleep is, how much stress you've had that day, not like physical stress necessarily, but like exercise, how much strain have you put on your body that will require you to sleep a bit more today. It's really great. I love it. So, on to the next question. What is the best, this is an interesting question. What is the best imagery for opposition in an attitude hold in center? What is the best imagery for opposition in an attitude hold in the center? Good question. So let's pretend you're doing quasi-attitude, and I'll definitely do a tip reel on this. So definitely follow me on Instagram at Ballet with Isabella. So many tips. But imagine your left leg is behind in attitude, and we're standing on the quasi line, right? So your right leg's on the floor. So first of all, let's talk about the legs. So you've got to really focus on the left hip, really stacking on top of the other one. Not by twisting. So notice as you think about opening your left hip, does your right thigh roll? So you got to really hold on to that wrap of the inner thigh of the supporting leg by really rotating the glute, accessing the deep rotators and pulling up in the stomach muscles and opening the left hip. Then the top arm is going to come forwards. So our working side becomes long, right? Because we don't want, as we open the hip, to then twist and go backwards. We bring it forwards like that. Then the side arm opens. So this is where the opposition comes into play. We focus heavily on the elbow, reaching towards the back knee. So it's not going to hook backwards, but it has a sensation of, as the left hip opens, it draws back whilst that comes forwards. So you have this very open hip, this very pulled up supporting leg, and this opposition there. So not only will that line look beautiful, but you'll also have really good balance. And so this is factored in with lots of movements, but if you can really master opposition, then your balance is going to be a lot better too. What daily and weekly routine would you suggest for an advanced beginner adult? It really depends on schedule, because the thing with adults is everyone's lives are really different. But I would say get on the conditioning routine. So, make sure you're doing your conditioning in the morning. You can use my platform, balletwithisabella.com. and, you know, do your exercises that are necessary for you. I can help guide you. If you email me and tell me what you're trying to improve, we can tell you what to do. So do your exercises in the time that you work best. In that way, it might be first thing in the morning, it might be in your lunch break, it might be just before class, it might be the end of the day. Make sure you're stretching as well. Then in terms of your ballet, really try to do something ballet-like if it's not a class every day. So obviously we want to try to do class as much as possible. You might only be able to do that 3 times a week, depending on your schedule. I would say try to do minimum 3 times. 4 or 5 is most ideal, but maybe a couple of those times you do some at home. You know, so maybe a couple of those times you do online classes. I have online Zoom beginner and advanced beginner ballet classes weekly with myself and other teachers. So that's a really good opportunity to take class live with me. Let's say you're in another country and you're dropping classes with someone else, but you also want my input. So you can also like use my classes online, the pre-recorded ones, but then come to the online Zooms when you can too. And I can actually see you and give you corrections as well, which gives you that sort of motivation. But you want to just really be quite small goal orientated. So if you really want to improve, you know, your stability and you want to improve your balance, then make sure you're doing conditioning surrounding the ballet classes to really help that, and don't rely on the ballet classes alone. How do you even engage your back? And she's put that in quotation marks. I get that correction often. So I assume your teacher's going, engage your back, engage, pull your shoulders down. You really, how I like to explain it as well, and you should definitely try, I mean, I've got everything for you guys. My ultimate back workout. It's like everyone's favorite. It's called Ultimate Back Workout. It's on my website. It has everything you need to help you engage your back. But basically what you need to think about is, I like going into a first position because this really helps me. So we can all just plonk our arms there in first. But then if you think about drawing your shoulders back, so you've got to always think about, I like to think about the shoulder joint being in line with my back. So, you know, when people have bad posture, the shoulder tends to slope forwards like that, so you get this sort of rounded position like it slopes, and you want it to be really rotated down and back a bit, so it's in one line. So that's one aspect. Then when you bring the arms up, so you focus on that, so you will feel them going back a little bit. Now we need to widen the back because we need a nice wide back. So from there I focus on as if someone's inside my arms pushing them away, right? So I think about my elbows reaching away like that even as I'm in this first position. So my shoulders are back, rib cage down, and elbows wide. So I feel that sensation of pull. So now not only have I drawn my shoulders back to make that in line, I've also reached away, and you'll feel as you reach away your shoulder blades also slide down. And that for me is a very nice effective way to engage your back. Now make sure how you're holding your arm in second in the first place. So when your arm's in second, make sure from your shoulder to your elbow is in line with your back, and then from your elbow to your wrist just comes as far forwards as your body. Because if your arm is too far forwards, your back can't engage. Just notice how that feels when your arm's there. I'm not even trying to engage my back and I can feel it engaging. Whereas if my arm's there, my shoulder and my back switches off and it goes more into the arm. So focus how and where your arms are positioned in the first place, because that will factor into how your back works. But ultimate back workout. Right guys, let's do a couple more questions. How do I hold stretches for a long time, even if it's a bit painful? So we don't want it painful. You don't want to be in pain. It's just more a case of you feel the stretch, and just take some deep breaths. Like if it's really painful, you may need to take some breaks. Like you might be doing like some intense nerve stretch or something. Depends what you're doing. Like I would never hold a really intense stretch. For example, back stretches. I would never hold a back stretch for that long, you know, and I would have worked very slowly up to that point of doing an intense stretch. But they're more some of the most intense stretches, and you're in a vulnerable position, so don't hold those for a long time. But stretches which are, let's say, just kind of a little bit intense, breathe deeply and just try to make little promises to yourself. So if you held it like 20 seconds yesterday, or a minute, or well, or 30 seconds, then try to do like 40 seconds the following day and see how you feel afterwards. Take some deep breaths. You may also be like, okay, I'm going to do 30 seconds here. I'll take a break and I'll go in for another 30 seconds. You know, you'll still have quite a lot of benefit. If you're worried about or you want advice on particular stretches you're talking about, it really depends what stretches you're talking about. I need a bit more description there, so feel free to DM me. That's from Emilia. Feel free to DM me about that one. So let's move on. This is a funny one from Sarah. How do I convince my parents to let me try the free trial? Sarah, you gotta beg. No, I'm joking. But Sarah, just say, I mean, it's totally up to your parents at the end of the day, but you know, it's gonna help you with your ballet. It's gonna help you improve. It's gonna help you master all your limitations. It's gonna help you go to ballet class more equipped and more prepared for what's asked of you, so that you're not reliant on the teacher. It's gonna help you achieve your dream. Therefore, I'm not sure what your parents are like, but a lot of parents, it's difficult because they want to see a result, and you'll say like, oh well, this will help me get there. You know, I do hope they let you. And also, it's 2 weeks for free. You know, your mum should be okay with this. This is quite a good question. How did you fit in conditioning alongside full-time training? Yeah, really good question. So I didn't do, for example, the same amount of conditioning like I was when I was like rehabbing from my back. I needed to simulate a day of Vaganova, for example, as best I could. But I always got it done first thing in the morning. Like, that is what I would do. I would do my exercises first thing in the morning, and I covered every area that I wanted to. So it was like exercises for turnout, exercises for my back, all these kinds of things. And then I remember what I would do was in the lunch break, I would work on my ankle stability. So I'd do a lot on the wobble board after a nap. And then at the end of the day, I would do all the stretching. I had very clear morning and nighttime routine. And I think as well, this was something I read the other day, which was about some really, like, the most successful people, not just dancers, but the most successful people have very clear morning and nighttime routines that are religious. So if they get those things done, if they get their morning routine done and their night routine done, then they're more inclined to be successful, because those things are kind of set in stone. They never change. And when they're done, it makes them feel focused and productive. And I had a very, very clear morning and nighttime routine. My exercises was done in the morning because, guys, I'm human. Fundamentally, after ballet class, I was dead. After ballet class, I didn't want to do anything, like anything extra. I had zero energy after ballet class. Like, the most I could do was the lessons. And so for me, I wanted to get all the hard stuff done first thing in the morning. Like, I wanted to do the abs, the core, the ankle stability, all those things. And I also enjoyed feeling a little bit hot and sweaty. I wouldn't look drenched or anything, but I'd be very warm for the ballet class. And I enjoyed that feeling. I liked feeling super warm and ready, like she could throw anything at me now. And then I'd do the ballet class feeling really, really connected to my muscles. I hated the idea of going in and not feeling anything, because I just wouldn't do a good job. And then that being done, you know? And as long as I did it, I was like, okay, cool, I've done it now. I've done it for the rest of the day. I can forget it for another day. And then I do my stretching at night. And stretching is kind of, you know, it's just lying on the floor, relaxing, and, you know, doing a couple of stretches, a couple of intense ones where you breathe deep. But I had friends on, so I was fine, you know? So make your morning and nighttime routine very, very clear. All right, guys, last question for today. How do you know whether you're lacking strength or flexibility? And a few of you have thumbed up that one. That's a good question. I think, for example, let's say you're doing a développé side or a développé front. If you can hold your leg and you can shoulder your leg, no problem, but you can't hold it, then it's obviously strength. If you can't shoulder your leg high, then it's going to be most likely a flexibility issue along with strength. The two go together, remember. So you might be quite strong at 90 degrees, but because you're lacking flexibility, even if then you gained the flexibility, you're not going to be strong for holding that at 90. You need to then build, 180. You then need to build the strength and understanding of how to use your body when it is that high, because that's the height that you're not used to. Because when you're at 90, you feel it tons in the glutes, tons, like in the deep rotators. When you get higher, it goes massively into the obliques, massively into the stomach muscles as well. When you're there, even if you're strong there, but it's not flexible. Like, it's very clear if you're not flexible, because you know, you won't be able to shoulder your leg easily, and it needs to be easy, like an elastic band. Then it's clear, okay, I've got to work on my flexibility. But it won't just happen then. If you're then, oh yes, I'm suddenly flexible, or let's say you've worked up to flexibility, but it's like, oh, now I still can't, because we need to build the strength now in those areas that you haven't worked either at 90 degrees, which is the obliques. The flexibility is one of the easiest things to understand whether it's enough, because it needs to be always, I like to think of it like you need to be slightly beyond what you need. So people are like, I can do the splits, but my penché still sucks, right? But it's like, oh, you can do a flat split on the floor, just about. But in order to do a flat penché, not only do you need, obviously, strength in your back and things, you need to be, it's kind of beyond, you know, it's like oversplit, because your hamstring underneath has to be super lengthened too. And your glutes have to be really relaxed too. So, and not relaxed in the movement, but kind of open. I always like to think, okay, if I want my développé to be there, then I need to be able to shoulder my leg there. Because if I can shoulder my leg there, then I'll only be able to développé there. And so you always want your flexibility to be slightly beyond what you need, and then the strength will be slightly below that. So I hope that answers your questions. Guys, thank you so much. That is all we will do today. Please follow me on Instagram at balletwithisabella.com. I love at Ballet with Isabella, but do check out balletwithisabella.com for the classes and courses. And I do hope to see you online with me, and also hear that you're taking my courses to help you in your journey. And do come to an intensive sometime. Now, I've got your back. I'm your friend, your mentor, and your supporter, and I'm here for you. So thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye for now.